शङ्करांश भूम शङ्करार्यपीठसद्गुरुन् शुद्धसत्त्वभासुरान् सुवर्त्मनीतभूसुरान् सर्वभूतसौख्यदान् क्षमाकरान् यतीश्वरान्.
श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानामालयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्. श्रीगुरुचरणद्वन्द्वं वन्देऽहं मथितदुस्सहद्वन्द्वं भ्रान्तिग्रहोपशान्तिं यस्य भसितम् आतनुते भ्रान्तिग्रहोपशान्तिं पांसुमयं यस्य भसितम् आतनुते. Okay, now we have completed 16th shloka. So now we are entering the 17th shloka. So after this, the Panchakosha Viveka was taught, and how the Atma, which is the witness of the Panchakosha, can never be the object. So what can never become the object is always the subject, and that doesn't undergo any transformations at all. It is never lost at all. Whereas the Panchakoshas are the ones which undergo constantly transformations, and they are the observed, and they are also inert. So this is what is taught in the so far. Now in the 17th shloka, another question is taken up. Anubhava swarupasya atmanaha anubhavyatvam na bhavati iti drishtanta pradarshane uchate. Pradarshane uchate. Yeah. Anubhava swarupasya atmanaha. So the Atma, which is the witness of everything, can never become the witnessed. In the sense, it can never become an object, but it is also always of the nature of experience. So it can never be objectified. It is the subject always. Anubhava swarupasya atmanaha anubhavyatvam. It can never become the observed or objectified. For that, this shloka is giving an analogy also, the well-known sun analogy. The way the sun is illuminating the whole world, but then the world doesn't illuminate the sun, or the world cannot know the sun, whereas the sun is the one which is illuminating the whole universe or the creation. So in the same way, Atman is the one which is witnessing everything, or which is illuminating everything, whereas the witnessed inert world, especially the Panchakoshas, can't illuminate the Atman or can't know the Atman. So that is the theme of this shloka. Anubhavati Vishwam Atma Vishvena Asau Na Cha Anubhoyeta Na Khalu Prakashyate Asau Vishwam Ashesham Prakashayan Bhanuhu. Anubhavati Vishwam Atma. Atma is experiencing. By the word experiencing, we have to understand Atman is illuminated. So Atman is experiencing the whole universe, the whole creation, Vishwam, Atma, Vishvena Asau Na Cha Anubhoyeta. But then the Atman can never become the object, or can never become known to the world. Vishvena Asau Na Anubhoyeta. For that, the analogy is Na Khalu Prakashyate Asau Vishwam Ashesham Prakashayan Bhanuhu. Na Khalu Prakashyate Asau Bhanuhu Vishwam Ashesham Prakashayan Na Prakashyate. Na Khalu Prakashyate. So the sun illumining the entire universe can never become illumined by, or can never be illumined by the world. So that is the idea. So we are reminded of the famous shloka from the 13th chapter of the Gita. At the end, Yatha prakashayat ekaha kritsnam lokam imam ravihi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. So that is the shloka there. Same meaning. Very, very powerful shloka. There, in that chapter, the chapter began with the declaration that the kshetram, or the inner world, is known. Yetat yo veti tat kshetram. So the kshetrajna, the meaning of the word, the literal meaning of the word also is someone who knows the kshetra. But then towards the end of that chapter, Bhagavan Krishna slightly transforms, but very, very powerfully transforms the word kshetrajna to the one who is illuminated. So from knowership, now the illuminating principle has been brought in. It has been replaced by illuminating principle. And this is what is the ultimate Vedantic principle also. So it's not that Atman knows anything, because Atman is not a knower at all in that sense. Only a Jiva can be a knower with the help of his sense organs and motor organs and the mind, buddhi and all that. He can know something. Whereas the Atman, bereft of any of these, can never be a knower. That also has to be remembered by us. Anyway, here in the commentary, Atma Anubhava Swarupaha Vishwam Sarvam Tat Anubhavati Janati. Atma is Anubhava Swarupa. That's what was established in the earlier shlokas. Anubhava Swarupa. It is of the pure nature of experience itself. Vishwam Sarvam, the entire universe or creation, that Anubhavati, it experiences everything. For that, the meaning given is Janati, it knows everything. Here also we have to replace it by the word Prakashayati. Vishvena Sarvajagata Asau Atma Na Cha Anubhoyeta Anubhava Gochari Na Kriyata. So, Vishvena, by the world, Sarvajagata, by the entire world, Asau Atma, this Atman can never become experienced or can never be experienced by the world. Anubhoyeta, Anubhava Gochari, it can never become an object of experience at all. In the sense, Atman can never be objectified by the world. Na Kriyata. Avidya Karyatva Vishwasya. For this, the reason given is the world is a product of avidya. So, being a product of avidya, it is something which is inert and which is something that is not prakash, same prakasha. It cannot illumine anything. It is something which has to be, even for its existence, something else other than itself, that is some sentient entity other than itself, has to validate it. So only when some sentient entity validates, the world gets even the existence status. So avidya karyatvad vishwasya. Khalo nishayartham avyayam. So in the world, in the shloka, in the second line, we have got the word khalo. It's an indeclinable avyayam. So he gives the meaning for that as nishayartham. It is something which is conveying the idea of certainty. It is certainly, indeed. So that is the idea. Tatra drishtantaha. So the analogy given in the shloka is Bhanuho Ravihi, for that the meaning is Ravihi, Bhanuho, Vishwam Jagat Ashesham Samagram Prakashayanne Bhasayanne Vishvena Jagata Kwapi Asau Na Prakashyata. So the sun is always shining and it is illuminating the world. But then here also there is some very interesting thing to be known. We have got two statements, Savita Prakashayati and Savita Prakashate. So Savita Prakashayati means sun is illuminating, that verb, illuminating something, X or the world. There is a meaning. But then actually the sun doesn't have the sankalpa to illuminate this world and all that. Its very nature is being luminous, that's all. If something comes in its range, within its range, that something gets illuminated by default. But then the sun doesn't have any need or any desire to illuminate anything. So that is the idea. So that is for that. The second statement is Savita Prakashate. So Savita is simply luminous. It is simply brightly shining. That's all. But it is not shining on anything or shining anything or illuminating anything. So that is the idea. Here also that's the same thing applies. Atman is always luminous, but then anything that comes in the range of Atman, that is the mind-body complex or any other thing, through the mind-body complex, it gets known. That's all. So it is not illuminating anything. So here also we have to know that. Atman is simply Prakasha Swarupam, Anubhava Swarupam. Anuho Ravihi Vishwam Jagate Ashesham Samagram Prakashayanna Vasayan Vishvena Jagata Kwapi Asau, never, it is never ever objectified or illumined by the world. Na Prakashyate. Prakashyasya avidya surupatvat. So whatever is objectified, that is of the nature of avidya. That is, it is a product of avidya. In the sense, it is inert. That's all. So it doesn't have the capacity to illuminate anything else. Tasmat anubhava prakasha rupatvat kalatriyepi atmanaha anubhava shanka na bhavati tirtaha. So because the Atman is of the very nature of Prakasha, that is Anubhava Swarupa, in all the three times, that is past, present, and future. And we can also include the three states, that is waking, deep sleep, and dream. The possibility, the very possibility of the loss or the decline or the disappearance of the Atman can even never be imagined also, because there is nothing, it can never, it can never disappear at all, because it is always of the nature of Anubhava. So here, in this shloka, we can also recall the first few lines of the Adhyasa Bhashya of the Sutra Bhashya, Brahma Sutra Bhashya. Shankaracharya opens the Brahma Sutra Bhashya through the preamble, where he says, Yushmat Asmat Pratyaya Gocharayoho Vishay Vishayanoho. So there he brings this idea is what is conveyed there. So the entire the Vedantic idea is based on an experiencer and an experienced one. So the experienced one or the witnessed one or the object is of the nature of tamas, that is darkness, it is inner, whereas the experiencing Chaitanyam is pure consciousness itself, it is prakasha, it is light. So that light and darkness analogy is also brought in there. And the inner one is the one which requires prakasha for its even validation, whereas the prakasha itself doesn't require anything else, anybody else's or anything else's validation, because it is Swayam Siddha. So those things are all conveyed in that Adhyasa Bhashya. That also can be recalled here, and this sloka can be better appreciated. So next is the in the next sloka, it is introduced this way: Idanim Jignasya Brahmanaha Swarupamaha. So now the nature of the essential nature of Brahman, which is what is to be inquired into and known. In the sense, it has to be known as one's own self. So for that, we have to know what the nature of Brahman from the Shastra. So that is what is being taught now. Tadidam Tadrisham Idrisham Etavat Tavat iti cha yate na bhavet Brahma taditi avadheyam no ched vishayo bhavet paroksham cha. So very nicely it is being stated here that idam, this Brahman or the Atman, which is of the nature of experience, idam tadrisham, it is of this nature or it is of that nature. Idrisham tadrisham, it is of that nature, it is of this nature, or tavat etavat, it is of this size and it is of that size. So that way the Atman or Brahman can never be known. These things can never be attributed to the Atman at all. Yate na bhavet Brahma tate iti avadheyam no ched vishayo bhavet paroksham cha. So the Brahman has to be known as not something which can be stated as it is like this or like that, or it is of that nature, of this nature and all that. So this is how Brahman has to be known. Otherwise, it becomes it would become an object and it would become mediate. Paroksham is mediate, aparoksham is immediate. So paroksham is like, for example, a pot. When we see the pot through the eyes only, we get to know the pot. So there the pot, unless it is seen and known, it remains paroksham. So only when a pramana like the eye is applied to it and known, then only the pot becomes aparoksham. So Brahman also, if it is something which is of this or that type, then it will become paroksham only, and it will become an object, just like a pot. So here, that is the idea conveyed here. That is, Brahman can never be said to be of this nature, of that nature, of this type or of that type, like this or like that. So anidrik atadrik, that's what Panchadashi says about this. So that same thing is mentioned here. Tadrisham, idrisham. So it is not of this type or that type, or of this size or that size. So that is to use or to employ these statements, we have to take something in the world as an example. But then the Brahman is loka vilakshana, no anupama. It is apratima. So na pratima asti. That's what the Shvetashastra Upanishad says. So there is no pratima at all. There is nothing as no analogy at all for Brahman. So we can't say it is like this or like that. But in a very distant way, to convey this, we employ the analogies of Akasha or Sagara, that is ocean and things like that. But then, strictly speaking, we can't use any of these created things to denote Brahman. In the commentary, the Acharya says, Tat paroksham, tat paroksham. So the word tat, whenever we say that, it is something distant. It is not immediately known. Whereas this, when we say this, it is immediately known. When something is there, stated as that, it is removed far away from us, whereas this or something is close to us. So that being far away is what is being stated as paroksham, and something which is close to us is what is said as aparoksham. So tat paroksham, idam aparoksham. So in the shloka, the word tat conveys paroksham, that is something which is mediate, whereas idam is something which is immediate, that is aparoksham. Tadrisham anumana gocharam. Tadrisham is anumana gocharam. Idrisham pratyaksha vishayaha. So he says, he gives the further explanation. When we say it is tadrisham, it is like that. It is anumana gocharam. That is, it is we have to use an inference. Whereas when we say idrisham, this something is very close to us and which is immediately available to us, then we say it is pratyaksha vishayaha. So that's how we use in the world also. When we say that in that house there is some sound coming, so we are not able to know that straight away knowing what, we are not able to know what that sound is from that house. But then some sound is coming, but then we have to infer it is because of something falling or something like that. Whereas when something happens in our own house, it is not like that. So we know what is falling and what is causing the sound. So tadrisham is anumana gocharam, idrisham is pratyaksha vishayaha. Swarupam yetavat parimanam. Tavat parimanam. So in the shloka, that etavat and tavat are used. So what that means is of this size and of that size. Yet Brahma na bhavet. So Brahman can never be stated to be of this type or that kind or of that size or this size. Na bhavet, na bhavati. Tarhi Brahma katam avadeyam. So if this is so, how indeed are we to know Brahman at all? So there is a question. Further, the answer also is given there. Katam avadeyam iti akanshayamaha brahmeti. Brahma atmaswarupam. So Brahman is atmaswarupam. Tat iti avadeyam jnatavyam yat ukta prakaram. So Brahman has to be known this way. So what he says is, what has been stated in the first line, that Brahman cannot be known as this or that, or of that size or that or this size. That is the way we have to know Brahman. So in the sense, it is something like it sounds like a riddle, but even Panchadashikara also uses the same way. So if you were to ask how indeed are we to know Brahman, then you have to know it as not of this type and not of that type, not of this size or not of that size. So ultimately it comes to neti. Whatever you encounter in the world as this or that, Brahman is not that. So that is how it is. So ultimately that is one. But then here it is being given as in a kind of very amusing way. So we have to know Brahman as not something which is of this nature, of that nature, or of this size or that size. So that is what Brahman is. Ityuktam tat Brahma avadeyam iti yat tadoho sambandaha. So then after that he is continuing. No chet anyatha, if otherwise, then vishayaha bhavet. So if this is not admitted, then Brahman will have to become an object, and then it has to become paroksham also. That is not desired at all. That is not desirable, and it can't also happen. So vishayaha bhavet, pramana vishayatvam asyat. So pramana vishayatvam means it is something which is known through a pramana. Pramana is some means of knowledge, like a pot is known through the eye, some smell is known through the smell indriyam, that is the nose, taste is known through the tongue and all that. Brahman also will have to become something which has to be known through some or the other indriyam, whereas Brahman has been taught by the Upanishads as aprameya. That is, it can never become an object at all. No pramana ever can can enable us to comprehend Brahman. But then the question ultimately arises, then how do we say that Shruti is the only Pramana? For that, the answer is Shruti also does not teach Brahman directly. Shruti also teaches Brahman by removing all the attributes or the adjuncts that have been superimposed on it. So Neti Neti is the ultimate way in which Shruti also teaches. So in that way, Brahman can never ever become an object of any Pramana. So here, if we say that Brahman has to be known, then we will have to say that it has to be, it will be an object and it will be immediate. Tasmat sarva pramana avabhasakam brahma ityartaha. So here, ultimately what transpires is, Brahman is the one which is illumining all the pramanas. And through that, all the pramayams also, but Brahman never ever will become an object of any pramana. And it can never become, it can never be objectified, it can never be illumined by anything. So that is the idea. Then there is one more thing. The Shruti, for example, in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it says that Brahman has to be Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Atmava, Are Drashtavyaha, Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha. So that is a statement there. So this, what it means is, Atman has to be, Drashtavya means it is literally seen, but what it means is it has to be known. And for knowing Atman or Brahman, we have to employ these three means, that is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. So there, the Upanishad itself says that it has to be known. But how do you say that the Brahman can never be objectified or it can never be known and all that? For that, the reply is, Brahman has to be known through the vritti, through a particular vritti of the mind, which is called Akhandakara vritti. And through that vritti, what happens is, Brahman will be, the vritti has to become a non-worldly content. The content of that vritti has to be non-worldly. In the sense, anything of the world should not come into that vritti. Only when that happens, Brahman alone will be the content of that vritti. So even then, the vritti doesn't objectify Brahman. It doesn't capture Brahman. It only, the person who is in this exercise, he is only warding off anything of the world to enter the mind. That's all. So when he keeps the vritti vacant, of course he has to be awake also, and there shouldn't be any other negative things happening to him. So in that sense, in that case, in that condition, the Atman will be of, the mind will be of the nature of, it will be taking the form of Atman. That's how it is explained there. But what it means is, the parts of everything of the world, then what happens is, this Atman, this mind will be of the form of Atma. It will be Atmakara or Brahmakara. So that is how it is. So now the doubt also can be, it has to be worded up this way. Then Idanim Ityadi Akarena Purite Vastuni Badhyamane Yadvastu Spurati Sa Atma Ityaha. So Idanim Ityadi Akarena Purite Vastuni Badhyamane. So Yadvastu Spurati. So whatever is now objectified by us, when that is negated, then what remains unnegated and what remains as an experience, that is to be known as Atma. So that is being stated in the next shloka. That is shloka number 19. So what is happening is, unfortunately, the scan that I have does not has a page, 2 pages missing, 10 and 11 missing. So this scan is a better scan or a right scan is these 2 pages are not is not available in there. So what I am doing is, after reading the shloka, I am resorting to a Hindi translation. Fortunately, it is available. So from that we can know the meaning of the shloka. Idanim iti pratite vastuni sarvatra badhyamanipi anidam abadhyam tattvam satvat etasya nacha parokshatvam. So this is the shloka. So what this shloka means literally is, idanim idam. So this and now this. So all these things have to be something in front of us. So that means it is object, all this object. When such things are perceived by us, pratite vastuni sarvatra badhyamanepi. So when all these things are negated, then anidam abadhyam, that which is not an object at all, that which is always the subject. Then abhadyam, that which is never negated at all, it can't be negated at all. That tattvam, satvat, that tattvam remains because it cannot be negated and there is nothing that can negate it. Then satvat, etasya naja parokshatvam. Because of this, the Atman can never become paroksha. It is always aparoksha for everyone. So this is the meaning of this sloka. So in commentary, that Hindi commentary, the scholar says this. I will just read that and explain. For those who know Hindi, it will be easy for them to comprehend what he says. अर्थ यह इस प्रकार प्रतीत होने वाली वस्तु के संबंध सर्वत्र बाध होने पर भी इदम से भिन्न आत्मा अबाधिक तत्व है, इसलिए इसकी परोक्षता कभी नहीं होती. So what I've already said the meaning of that shloka. Whatever is experienced or perceived as this in front of us or as an object, when that object is being negated, what remains as unnegatable, that is the Atma, which is distinct from the object. So what is distinct from the object is the subject, and that is Atma. So that's how we have to know it. That's what, and because of this, the Atma or Brahman can never become an object. It will always remain the subject. Even if the object is not there, it will remain the subject. But the thing is, the label subject will not be there for that. In that case, the Atman will not be having that label subject, because the label subject will be there, will be justified only when there is an object to be known. When there is no object at all, the subject doesn't disappear, but then the subject will cease to be called a subject. So that is the idea. So in this Vyakhya, he says this, idam iti pratite vastuni. That is the mean, but that's what he takes from the shloka. Yeh hai, इस प्रकार दृश्य वस्तु को के दो बार इदम कहने से कार्य उपाधि और कारण उपाधि समझना. So he says that कार्य उपाधि and karan upadhi, that is, whatever is there as cause and whatever is there as effect, both are actually object to us. So it is not that the karanam is not object, but then here some sort of technicalities involved here. I will explain that. In one Upanishad, I think it is the Kena Upanishad, Anyadeva tat viditadapi aviditadapi. So Anyadeva tat viditadato aviditadati. So what it says is, it is distinct from what is known and it is distinct from what is not known. So what is happening, what that conveys is, in the world, in the manifest world, with our pramanas, that is with our instruments of knowledge, that is the conscience, organs and all that, we can know all these things like forest, mountain and all that. But then the world is made up of the Panchabhutas only. But then the Panchabhutas, before become this Bhautika Prapancha, the Panchabhutas themselves have originated as extremely subtle Sukshma Bhutas, that is these Tanmatras, and all the preceding causal sequence before the manifest world that we are experiencing, that cannot be seen by us because it is apratiksha. It is not available for our pratiksha at all. So, but then that is also not Atman. That is also only it belongs to the Anatma only. But then this Anatma, this entire Anatma is divided into two categories. One is Anatma that can be known by us, and Anatma that can be not known, that can't be known by us because it is of that nature. So Indriyas and all that, those things are agochara. That's the Sukshma Bhutas can't be known by us. This Abhyakta Tattva and all that cannot be known by us, but then it is there. That is the Shastra says that from the Mula Prakriti evolves and becomes the gross world. But then before becoming the gross world, the subtle states of evolution can't be seen by us. But then still it is not Atman. So it is still Anatman only. It is still Mithya only. It is still Avidya only. So the Upanishad says that Brahman or Atman is distinct from the known, and it is also distinct from the unknown. So that unknown is called Karana, And the known by us, whatever is known by us through our senses, is called karya. That's what his Hindi commentator says. I don't know whether his commentator has literally translated or based his commentary on the Sanskrit original. I don't know that. But anyway, he is saying, what he says is quite useful and nice also. कार्य उपाधि का अर्थ ही पंचकोश और कारण उपाधि का अर्थ माया. So anyway, he's yeah, okay, here. So that also I've said. That is, karya upadhi is the immediately known to us. That is the panchakoshas, which are all definitely object to us, and the karana is the maya, which is not known to us. Then man buddhi indriyon ka se grahya vastu ke sarvatra बाध्यमाने अपि सब वस्तुओं में बाधित होने पर भी जागृत स्वप्न अथवा जागृत अवस्था का स्वप्न तथा सुषुप्ति में बाध होता है. स्वप्न का जागृत और सुषुप्ति में बाध होता है, और सुषुप्ति का जागृत और स्वप्न में बाध हो जाता है. अतः ये अवस्थाएं व्यभिचारी होने से मिथ्या है. इस मायिक प्रपंच का बाध होने पर भी. So he is bringing the idea of the three states and says that the three states are cancelled out in the other states. That is mutually cancelled out. So the waking state is not there in the other two states, and the dream state is not there in the other two states, and the sleep state is not there in the other two states. So this way they cancel out each other. So even when all of them are now known this way to be non-existent really, the Atman, which is the witness of this, can never become non-existent. So that's what is stated here. So in the for the next portion, he has given some lengthy explanation, which we will take up in the next class and continue this explanation of this sloka. That is sloka number 19, which we have not finished yet. श्री गुरु चरण द्वंद्वं वंदेहं मतित दुस्सह द्वंद्वं भ्रांतिग्रहोपशांतिं भसितं यस्य भजितं पांसमयं यस्य भजितं आतनुते. शास्त्रं शारीरमीमांसा देवस्तु परमेश्वरः आचार्य शंकराचार्य सन्तु मे जन्म जन्मनि. विद्याविनय संपन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वंदे वेदांत तत्त्वज्ञं विदुषेखर भारतीम्. ओम तत्सत्.